Alright. Time for that September picks part. Oh. Whoops. Hey guys. I know, there was no part 2. I'm sorry, we had poop water. What do you want me to do? We had poop water in our sewer, and I couldn't work down here for like a week. So, everything kind of fell behind, but we're gonna just move on with October. No theme this month, so I know you might be expecting spooky themes and stuff, but nothing really spooky, per se. Just normal stuff. So, let's start just right away with the part of the video that gets this video demonetized. This is a band that I really like. This band is called First Aid Kit.
There's music and there's laughter. I don't know if I'm scared of dying, but I'm scared of living too fast, too slow. Regret, remorse, hold on. No, I've gotta go. There's no starting over, no new beginnings. Time raises on. Just gotta keep on keeping on.
So First Aid Kit is probably more well known than maybe I really expect. You've probably heard their songs, whether you realize it or not, but I still enjoy them. The first song I ever heard by them was Emmy Lou. Very interesting band, Swedish sisters, very young too, and they have a very folksy American country style, some kind of like tribal, lots of tribal drums and beats and parade beats and things like that in some of their songs. But one of the things that really got my attention was their cover of Simon and Garfunkel's America.
Let us be lovers, we'll marry our fortunes together. I've got some real estate here in my bag. Ooh, so we bought a pack of cigarettes and Mrs. Wagner pies, and we walked off to look for America.
This cover basically confirmed to me that they are Simon and Garfunkel, more or less. Like, their harmonies are incredible. This isn't the only cover they've done. They've done a ton of covers.
Generals gathered in their masses
ashes at black massive. For minds that plot destruction, sorcerer of death's construction. In the fields, the bodies burning, as the war machine keeps turning. Death and hatred to mankind, poisoning their brainwashed minds. Oh, Lord, yeah!
Each with their own interesting twist on them that are steps above just, you know, girl with ukulele on YouTube kind of stuff, you know? But they're very interesting. I love them. I know one of the first things my wife probably wants to do once the pandemic ends is see when we can see these two in concert. They're just great. Like I've said before, I'm not very well versed in music, so I can't speak as detailed about a band or music as I can about films and stuff, but I hope that just the music itself kind of speaks for itself.
Now the pale morning sings of forgotten things. She plays the tune for those who wish to overlook the fact that they've been blindly deceived by those who preach and pray and teach. But she falls short and the night explodes in laughter. But don't you come here and say time it all shifts one way or the other.
All right, so now we're back into the territory I understand a little more. We're going to talk about a classic film that I like. This is a film we actually watched as part of our Discord movie club about a month or two ago. I don't remember the exact date, but this is Todd Browning's 1932 feature, Freaks.
We told you we had living, breathing monstrosities. You laughed at them, shuddered at them, and yet, but for the accident of birth, you might be even as they are. Their code is a law unto themselves. Offend one, and you offend them all.
So Freaks is kind of an important film, whether you've heard of it or not. And the reason why is because Todd Browning did Frankenstein with Bela Lugosi before this, and he was part of an established Hollywood machine, kind of. He had a really good career, especially in the silent film era, but he detested the sound era of Hollywood that was emerging. And he made Freaks as kind of like another new horror film. And Freaks is notorious for one big thing, and that is that a woman that saw the film was hospitalized and claimed that the film gave her a miscarriage. The film is basically about a group of circus freaks, and I know that that's not politically correct, but I'm going to use that term for this since that's what they use in the film and it's the title of the film. So people with microcephaly, dwarves, amputees, things like that. And it's about basically a love triangle between a dwarf and an acrobat. But what's really interesting about the film is, for a 1930s film about people with disabilities, birth defects, etc., that is called Freaks, it is very, very empathetic to the so-called freaks. Todd Browning actually shot this film with real-life circus performers. And there's a apocryphal story about F. Scott Fitzgerald, who during this period was actually a screenwriter as well as a novelist, that he went to the commissary at the studio while they were filming Freaks and ran out of the commissary scared or horrified when he saw performers there. And in fact, the Freaks in the film were not allowed in the same commissary and dining facilities and kind of resting quarters that the normal actors and actresses were. They were isolated from them. The film was basically panned, everyone hated it, and it ruined Todd Browning's career. He basically made no more films worth mentioning after this. But it's a cult classic. It's still a very well-made film. And for 1932, damn, is it powerful. You have to remember that this was during a time when eugenics was part of the popular discussion. And this film has... The antagonists in this film are the normal people. The acrobat, the strongman, the townsfolk and stuff. The freaks are portrayed as anything but. And it's just an incredible film. It is a horror film in a lot of sense. And it's really hard to watch. As far as, like, not difficult as far as material, it might be. But in the sense that it's pretty much impossible to find online how to watch it. You could probably find it on YouTube and stuff. But as far as, like, there's no Blu-ray, I have a DVD. And that's about it. I don't think it's ever been on Blu-ray in any region, as far as I know, like as an official release from a publishing company. And the ending in this film was added later to kind of create a less horrifying ending, and it can feel tacked on. And that's because it was tacked on, more or less. So you can... I like to think the film ends before that tacked on ending. The tacked on ending doesn't really change anything, per se. It gives it more of a happy ending, but I think the film ends better without it, personally. But I highly recommend it. One of the most notorious scenes in this film you've seen, and you don't even realize it, is the one of us scene.
We'll make her one of us. A loving cup, a loving cup. We accept a one of us. We accept a one of us.
Goober gobble, goober gobble.
We accept her, we accept her. Google gobble, Google gobble. One of us. One of us. Google gobble.
They're going to make you one of them, my peacock. Goober gobble.
So now let's move on to a contemporary film that I also really like. This is a film by Jonathan Glazer, starring Scarlett Johansson, called Under the Skin.
You don't want to wake up, do you?
Under the Skin, as soon as I saw it, I knew it was going to be one of my favorite films. This is, I think it was Richard Roper, I believe, when he wrote his review, basically said, this film is an example of why film can be considered art. Roger Ebert gave it 4 stars. It basically was on top 10s of everyone. In 2013, I think it came out. I'll correct myself if I'm wrong right here. But it stars Scarlett Johansson, and I don't want to talk too much about it. It's an experiential film. I love experiential films, and what I mean by that is, I love films that aren't necessarily about the story itself, or about events that happen to characters per se. I'm a big fan of films where it's more about emotional resonance and more about kind of what you feel and how you, and the visual medium itself and how it's used, and not like the narrative itself, right? Because there's movies with amazing narratives that are good, and I appreciate that are good, but I don't go back and watch them. Stuff like Shawshank Redemption is a great example. Good movie, great movie, probably one of the best movies ever made. I haven't watched it since the first time I watched it. But I've seen Under the Skin a few times. One of the other films that we're probably going to watch on movie night that is the definition of I would say the definition of an experiential film is Tetsuo Iron Man. That's another one. It's not about the narrative per se. And that's not to say that there is no narrative in this. I guess I'll explain slightly the narrative. Basically, Scarlett Johansson plays someone that is not human, pretending to be human to lure men for purposes that aren't clear, other than the men are not really alive at the end of it. And I know that there were a lot of like pregnant pauses there, and there were a lot of like confused looks and stuff like that. And it's not because I'm not certain about what happens in the film. I'm fairly certain about what happens in the film, but it's not explicit. There's no exposition about like, I am this, and I am doing this for this reason. That's a reason why I'm not a big fan of stuff like Christopher Nolan movies. Some of them they're shot beautifully. Christopher Nolan's he has an amazing eye. But as far as like stories that he writes and stuff, I'm not a huge fan of. Because they tend to be very exposition heavy, and a lot of kind of space is eaten up by kind of setting up things so that like you're not confused later. And I know that that's just an audience preference, right? Some people prefer that and expect that or want that. I'm the kind of person that ambiguity and some obscure parts and things not being entirely explained is perfectly fine with me. And this is kind of a weird thing with Inception. And fuck it, I'm going to talk a little bit about Inception and why I'm not a big fan of Inception. So Inception's fine. There's a lot of scenes in it that I love. Leonardo DiCaprio does a good job. Ellen Page does a good job. Ken Watanabe does a good job. Everyone does a great job. The problem is Ellen Page is strictly there for no other reason, really, other than to have things explained to her. She basically serves the entire role that Commander Riker did in the later seasons of Star Trek Next Generation, where he was just there to be explained things to. And the part of the film that I liked the most, which was the ending, it seems that so many people were frustrated by it because there was no lack of closure, and I understand that completely. And in fact, I say that generally, and this is going to sound elitist, and I apologize, but generally, like if there's issues with understanding a film and stuff like that, I tend to default to the person that's watching it. But in this case, I think that it's actually the filmmaker's fault, because the film for most of it tends to explain things fairly well and fairly concisely. I wish that they just wouldn't do it at all, honestly. But then you end with ambiguity and uncertainty, and I think that there's a disconnect with that, and I think that that's a problem. So there's my review of Inception.
Work placement? You're not going to tell me anything about this first? Why?
Such as how? How could I ever acquire enough detail to make them think that it's reality? We're dreaming?
It's just a dream, then why are you... How did architects become involved?
5 minutes.
What? Who are the people? Yours? How else do you do it? My question is, what happens when you start messing with the physics of it all? Something, isn't it? Why are they all looking at me? Converge? Like they're gonna attack us? Mind telling your subconscious to take it easy? Well, you gotta draw from stuff you know, right? Why not? Is that what happened to you? Is that why you need me to build your dreams? Why wouldn't I wake up? What? She's his wife?
That no one else
Like
knows.
a coin?
No.
What kind of tricks? How big do these levels have to be?
Better than Maze.
Then the longer we have before the projections catch us? Cobb can't build anymore, can he? Why?
Back to Under the Skin. So Jonathan Glazer, actually, he's made 2 other films before this. One of them was called Birth, with Nicole Kidman, in which she falls in love, or she believes that a 10-year-old boy becomes the embodiment of her late husband, and she falls in love with the boy, and it's kind of an exploration of the transcendence of love. Very controversial. Booed and heckled at, I believe, the Venice Film Festival or the Cannes Film Festival. I forget which. And then he also did Sexy Beast, which was a British crime thriller with Ben Kingsley. Those 2 and Under the Skin are his only films. He basically makes 1 a decade. That's pretty much it. But he is very well known outside of it because he's done a lot of music videos, some of which are very well known.
What we're living in, let me tell ya. And it's a world that man can eat at all. When things are big that should be small.
And he also has done a ton of commercials. In fact, most of the commercials that he's well known for weren't really shown in America as far as I know, or I never saw them on television. But if you're from the UK or Europe, you've probably seen his commercials.
Ahab says, I don't care who you are, here's to your dream. The old sailors return to the bar. Here's to you, Ahab!
Jonathan Glazer is compared a lot to Stanley Kubrick. He's compared a lot to Michelangelo Antonioni. And I completely agree with those things. As much as like Stanley Kubrick, I'm hit or miss with depending on the film. As far as the eye, as far as having like a director's eye, he and Stanley Kubrick, I think, are on par. That being said, Under the Skin will not explain things to you. Under the Skin might feel slow. It might feel laborious. And that's okay. For me. Just to give some kind of behind the scenes about it. So for a large chunk of this film, Scarlett Johansson is driving a van to pick up men. Those scenes were shot with hidden cameras, and I believe almost all of the men, except for one man specifically, which I won't talk about because I want it to be kind of a surprise when she picks him up, because he's also important to the plot of the film. All these men were picked up without knowing that they were going to be on film. So they were picked up. Scarlett Johansson, in her character, flirted with them and talked to them and stuff. And then after she dropped them off, did Jonathan Glazer and his film crew come out of a van that had followed them and explain to them, "You've been on film. Would you like to participate in this?" Which included scenes of nudity, to include full erections, and going on to film sets that included like swimming pools and things like that for purposes of special effects and stuff. So this was, I don't want to say guerrilla in the sense that, like, because when you talk about guerrilla filmmaking, you think of no permits, basically illegal filmmaking. And this wasn't illegal, but it was guerrilla in the sense of like, the permissions and the acting was only secured after the fact that they were filmed. It was basically, in a lot of ways, filmed the same way like Jackass was filmed. Jackass was filmed with hidden cameras, and then they got written permission from them after the fact to put them in movies, right? To actually, like, put them in the final production. But it's an amazing movie. It's probably most notorious for the fact that it's the only role Scarlett Johansson has ever been nude in. But here's the thing. Like, Scarlett Johansson she is a sexual character. But she's not, like, they don't present her in this, like, photoshopped way. And by photoshopped, what I mean is, like, there's big pores on her face during a zoom in. Her makeup is not perfect. She doesn't have, like, you know, when I think of, like, the absolute end of the spectrum for, like, lack of a better word, male gaze, as far as like having a female figure on form in film, especially for the purposes of portraying sexuality and enticement, I think of stuff like Megan Fox in Transformers, or I think of like Bond girls, basically, right? And Scarlett Johansson, for as sexy of a woman as she is not portrayed that way in this film. In fact, like, she has never, other than maybe Marriage Story, has never appeared more down to earth than in this film, which is ironic given the fact that she is not of this earth. And I will give you one trigger warning. This film has a scene, and it's the most hard to watch scene in this film, but it's the most important scene in this film. And it takes place on a beach. And I will say that if you have issues with child neglect, I'll put it like that, then it's a scene, then you probably want to skip this movie. It's a short scene, but it's a very, very important scene. It is, I could talk about this film all day. I watched it again recently to make this video, and I have not changed my mind at all about it. I think it's still one of the best films probably made in the past 30 or 40 years, honestly, with only maybe a couple films better than it. So, Under the Skin, Jonathan Glazer, Scarlett Johansson, I love it.
You don't want to wake up, do you?
All right, that's my pretzel picks for October. I know that there were only 3 things. If you guys want, I can make one, another one for this month, permitting no more poop water coming through our sewer line. And I apologize, I've noticed that, like, there's some flashing and stuff. It's the auto adjust and the backlight compensation and all that shit. So I apologize. It's probably because I'm wearing this bright neon women's yoga headband and this black Serial Experiment Lane shirt. So If you enjoyed it, please let me know. I would really appreciate feedback. And ending, maybe? Yeah, I think ending.